Convictim mentality for the goddesses. So here in Australia we have this convictim mentality. I'm sure you'll come across it now that the word's been mentioned. Convict and victim mentality combined, we basically have this mentality of a convict. You know, can't achieve anything, always doing no, always saying limited mind, these sorts of things. Where does it come from for the goddesses? Well, if you go back into history, and it's not widely known or publicized because it's not pretty, but when the convict settlement was starting to get a foothold here in Sydney, in Australia, the convicts were paid in rum. There was a rum rebellion. It was chaos. You know, if you get a whole bunch of convicts getting whipped and not treated very, very poorly, and paying them in rum, working them really hard in a hot summer sun in the climate they're not used to, with lots of bugs and pests and critters that they're totally unfamiliar with in an uncomfortable environment, there's going to be some chaos, really. Then, of course, the British government decided, all right, well, this is going well. What do we need to expand this colony? We can get rid of our convicts and make some money. Hang on. That's carried on through history, hasn't it? Yeah, definitely. And so they decided we're going to send what they call some breeding ships. And of course, they sent out, I think it was about 120 to 150 goddesses from Britain to Sydney, the new settlement. And the smart goddesses, or the ones that were able to, they hooked up with the British naval officers because they had a sense of security about them. They had a position, a title. Why? Because they could protect them. You know, they can protect and provide. And of course, if you're going to a new colony, you don't know what's going on there. You've heard stories. You know what men are like in these sorts of environments. You're going to want some safety and security, and that would be a smart move. But of course, there wasn't too many of those. They were treated very well on their trips. Almost all of them survived. Compared to the convict ships, it was like 30–40%. So they were treated quite well. But what's going to happen when they arrived? You know, you've got drunken, chaotic men who've never seen women for possibly decades. They got set upon. They got absolutely destroyed. You know, I'm sure you can imagine what it's like. I don't really need to describe that too much. So, if we take that as the basis and the intention of how our women were not so protected and provided for in Australia right from the get-go of European settlement, has that moved on from our into our current culture? I certainly see it, and I'm sure you do too, and within ourselves. So, how about, first of all, send some love to that instance, so then that can, you know, clear that up in the astral and spiritual realms, which certainly always helps. And how do we identify it within ourselves, and how can we see it and deal with it? So, inevitably there's going to be an innate distrust of men. You know, especially men who are having an outwardly show of aggression or not exactly protecting and providing, setting the masculine container for our goddesses to thrive and to allow themselves to have freedom of speech and just be themselves. Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? So let's get past that fear of men. We are generally here to protect and provide. And how many times have you asked for help and you got it instantly within like an obedient servant? Because we love to serve and help the goddesses, you know. We just need to have the opportunity to be created for us. So, simple as 3 little letters. Ask. Certainly helpful, huh? And what else? Well, anytime that you'll see in Australia in particular, men have too, we just have emotional outbursts for, you know, toxic. So, in Australia we have, how many goddesses have emotional outbursts for what it appears to be very little reason? It's all down to toxicity in the liver and the gallbladder, for instance. So, if we can nurture ourselves and do, you know, get together with the goddesses, you know, have those massages and those treatments and, you know, the lovely nurturing things that I certainly enjoy being part of as well, and always encouraging friends and partners to do. How can we love each other more and more? Loving ourselves first. You know, going for that swim at the beach, or having that massage, going for a walk in nature. All these beautiful goddess-like things which are Shakti and Mother Nature in general. Another big one is colon cleansing. Yeah, I'm always going to fit something like that What I've noticed as well is if emotional insecurity all stems from the colon, and if a person has growths down here, the hemorrhoids or polyps or whatever gunky stuff there is, then that's an actual physical barrier to their nervous system getting the messages back to them to go and tell them that they need to connect with their own selves, their mother nature, their Shakti, to actually deal with that, because the more movement and exercise, we have more blood flow to actually deal with that stuff down there. So, and how many times has somebody said, let's go for a bushwalk, and you freaked out? You know, there's basically fear and insecurity because there's some gunk down there. I know I've seen it come across a number of times. You know, how many made-up stories of insecurity has there been in your life, especially around men, that has come from an actual poor dietary choice and detoxification choice because there's some growths down there? You'd be surprised how much. You really would. How many people can't sit and meditate or do a yoga practice because their hips are tight? And there's all this insecurity there. It's movement is the absolute key for them. What's the key for transforming all of this, you know, victim mentality mindset is you look on the 5-element theory in Ayurveda on the star, and you've got fire and water. In between is transformation. And there's a wow for transformation right there. So, sweating is absolutely huge. For the goddesses who haven't got through their digestion, then down underneath the digestion, you've got a plethora of problems that you haven't discovered yet because the body hasn't got the resources to tell you as yet or to fix it, so it will not come to your mind. You know, there's all the victim and emotional stuff is essentially stored in the organs and a little bit lower in the digestive organs. And so if they're not clear, then there's going to be emotional outbursts all the time. It's just inevitable. So what are other things I like to do is clean out the yoni. So yoni steaming with some beautiful herbs is amazing. Absolutely, I love sharing that with the goddesses. It seems cool. Yoni massage is an option for you. And Ayurvedic herbs, we have particular herbs that go straight to that particular point and start working away, getting rid of the gunk. And then, of course, that is where the feminine issues are stored. As we know from our tantric training, we're told that 70% of a goddess's stored emotions, and therefore her energy capacity and personal power and feminine empowerment, is stored in her yoni and cervix area. So we really need to get our diet with avocados and different other herbs and a B vitamin complex supplement so the kidneys can flush things out through the urinary tract for more goddess empowerment. Sounds good, huh? Yeah, we love it too. Absolutely. So, victim and convictim mentality. Well, we can get rid of that, can't we? Another one is this thing in Australia and many other places of working hard, because by coming into the country straight away, getting set upon, and then having to work really, really hard just to set up a shelter and a lifestyle and a life here, then our goddesses were told they had to work really, really hard. I don't know about that. Where's the nurturing, where's the feminine touch and the relaxation that helps the spleen, which therefore is going to provide the kidneys and urinary tract with the time and the space to filter through their stuff. And of course, also, whatever inevitably happens with spleen issues is iron deficiency. If we don't have the iron with the red blood cells pumping around, well, then there's not a lot of feminine juices flowing. And other one is up here, there's quite a lot of tension. So they're the blood flow areas and capillaries to get through the breasts. Massage, cleaning up that area and getting rid of some blockages and oxalate and calcium buildup is huge. Also down here around the hips, hip openers, absolutely wonderful. But of course all this means nurturing time. Feminine goddess nurturing time. Nurture ourselves, and then we can nurture each other and our personal relationships with friends and family. All about nurturing. And of course, thyroid is huge. Because if the nervous system is buzzing around, always having to work, and always heavy metals in our environment and all the toxic food, then the perception of time has to come through here. So all of the energy comes up, and then that message gets cross-wired and comes here going, I've got to do everything really, really fast. I've got to be busy just because I don't want to face myself. Where's the nurturing time? I can't do nurturing time. No, I've got too many kids, I've got all these excuses, I've got too much work, I've got all these payments, I've got all this. What's the solution for that? Stop. Nurture. So, by stopping and nurturing, and ideally detoxifying, especially the thyroid, heavy metals are huge for that one, and we need to clear this stuff out, then our perception of time changes. And all of a sudden we find more time for self-nurturing just because we have done some. We program our mind, essentially. And we're feeling amazing. So then we want to do it more often. And then it has flow-on effects in our wider life and to our friends and family because we're calm and centered. So, let's get rid of this convictim mentality that we have to be busy and fast and scared all the time. It's a story. How about we rewrite our story to more loving, ascended type of fairy tales and mysteries?